today we are going to go on a hike in the state park to do our ecology lesson. Right now I'm at the Indiana Dunes State Park right here in Northwest Indiana. We are really lucky that we have this specific ecosystem here. So this is how we're going to study ecology. Remember, ecology is the study of the interactions of everything in the environment. So that includes biotic and abiotic factors. Remember, biotic factors are anything in the environment that's alive, and abiotic factors are anything in the environment that's not alive, but it still plays a role in the interactions that are going on. So right now, I need you to list 3 biotic factors that you see around me and 3 abiotic factors. Then we're going to continue on our hike and see what we can see. Okay. So, some of those abiotic factors that you might have mentioned was the sand and the soil. At the dunes, we have really sandy soil here, but another way that helps us build up those nutrients to help some of those biotic factors grow is the leaves. So when you are hiking around here, you'll see that they leave a lot of dead leaves just here on the ground. That's really important because when those leaves break down, they return those nutrients back into the sandy soil, which helps us have the awesome vegetation and then animal life that we have at the Dunes State Park. So why I stopped here is this is a great example of symbiosis. Remember, symbiosis is any interaction between 2 living things in which one of those living things benefits. So right here we have a really good example of commensalism, right? Oh, we have a bug there too. So our commensalism here is our moss and our oak tree. Oak tree, it's commensalism because the oak tree really doesn't care that the moss is here at this stage of growth. The tree probably doesn't even realize that it's going on here. But remember, commensalism is one benefits, one's not affected. So our oak tree is not affected, but our other organism, this moss here, it is benefited, right? It has a place to grow and it has nutrients. So, but why I stopped here is there's another type of symbiosis going on right here. So if you look, follow this vine up this tree. This vine is not part of the tree. It's a separate, different plant. And why I chose this one is because, much like the moss, right now, it's probably a little commensalism, right? That vine is using this tree as a place to go. You see it has some buds forming here, so it's really happy on this tree. So right now, it's commensalism for the tree. Tree doesn't know what's going on, doesn't care either way. But think, eventually, as this vine gets bigger and its resource needs get more intense, it could start leaching more nutrients out of the soil away from the tree, or if it does get big enough, it could wind itself around the tree and eventually strangle it. In that case, it wouldn't be commensalism anymore. What type of symbiosis would it be? Very good, parasitism, because one benefits, our vine benefits, but the other, it's negative, right? That wouldn't be very good for our oak tree. So we are going to keep hiking and see what else we can find in this ecosystem. So as I was hiking, I saw this really cool example of exposed tree roots, and this is how abiotic factors can play a role in your environment. So the 2 abiotic factors we're talking about right now is rain and soil erosion. So what happens is during a big storm, where does our rain fall? It falls down from the sky, precipitation, and then runoff, right? Think of your water cycle. So it's gonna run down this dune, and when it brings with it, it's gonna bring all that soil with it, which leaves these tree roots exposed like this. So if you're ever hiking around and seeing exposed tree roots, it's due to erosion. And that's also really important why you always want to stay on the trail when you're hiking, because if we go off trail too much, we can make that soil erosion happen even quicker. All right, let's go. So as we're walking, you can see why the roots are super important and why we like them on hiking trails, because they hold the soil in place. So as we're walking, those roots are stopping that soil from going all the way down this hill, which would happen as a result of erosion. So that's why we have the dunes still here, because we have all these trees here on the soil, which is holding all of that sand in place and stopping all of that erosion. Okay guys, so here is another abiotic factor in our environment which can help play a role. So when trees go down, when they rot, they can decompose and they can add to the soil, but also they find habitat for a lot of species. For example, I bet you if we flipped this over right now, we would find a whole bunch of animals and plants and fungi that live underneath it. So what I want you to do now is type in 3 examples of organisms that you think I could find under this nurse log. great time to talk about a niche or niche. You hear it both ways, both pronunciations are okay. Right here we have some what are called spring ephemerals or wildflowers. They have a really specific niche or niche, right? So a niche is your job in the ecosystem, why you are in your habitat, what you do. And why, so right now, what is it? It's it's April 3rd. So it's still kind of cold out. That's why, so these flowers, they're one of the first ones to come out in the springtime. So they can handle a little bit harsher, colder of a temperature. However, when they're out here, there's no competition for sunlight, right? Because if you look up, there's no leaves on the trees, there's no plants on the forest floor, so they have all the sunlight that they can muster. So their specific niche in their ecosystem, why they are so good and why they can survive, is they come out first, they get all that sunlight, they get those nutrients, and then they die away by the time bigger competition comes around. Okay, so as we were hiking, I found this plant, which is so cool and so awesome. So if you look down here, this right here is called lamb's ear. And why it's called lamb's ear is, one, look at its shape, right? And then two, it's actually really soft like a lamb's ear. What? That's how it got its name. But why I thought it would be cool to bring it up now is we talked about the toilet paper shortages because people are crazy with this whole COVID-19 thing. So if you are ever desperate, this is also called nature's toilet paper because it's very soft. So see, this is why biology is the most important subject. I tell you this, guys, all the time because you can just find what you need in the world around you. All right, let's keep going. And now look, we are at a totally different ecosystem. We are now at an aquatic lake freshwater ecosystem. That's what's so cool about living where we live, is we have two totally different and diverse ecosystems that are literally side by side. So speaking of ecosystems, let's talk about those levels of organization a little bit more. So when I say ecosystem, it includes all the biotic and abiotic factors that are found in this environment. So in my aquatic ecosystem, some of my abiotic factors are going to be water, obviously, right? We have some sand, we have the temperature of the water, and the amount of sunlight that goes down through the water. Panning back to my forest ecosystem, completely different abiotic factors going on there, right? We still have that sandy soil, but we now have moisture level is going to be more of a competition thing, whereas in our aquatic ecosystem, not so much of a big deal, right? So going up in levels of organization, there are several ecosystems in a specific biome, right? So even though these two ecosystems are different, they're still part of the same biome in which we live in. All those different biomes put together, that's our biosphere, which is everywhere on the earth that contains life. So that's our highest level of organization. Biosphere. In our biosphere, we have several biomes that are made up of different ecosystems. Our ecosystems are made up of different biological communities, which are all the biotic factors in an area. Take those biological communities, add them together with the abiotic factors, that's what makes an ecosystem. So going down, we have our ecosystem, our biological community, and then from there you can isolate specific populations, which are going to be one organism. So for example, a population that we could find here is all of the, what?
Seagulls.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. All the seagulls that we can find here in this specific area, that's going to be a population of seagulls. That's going to be the seagulls that live in this area. In this specific area, that's a population. To go down to the most specific thing that we study in ecology, that's an organism. So that would be one specific seagull. Unfortunately, I think this is the only time that I've been at the beach and I'm unable to find a single seagull. So we'll keep looking and watching to see if we can see any examples of an organism and then a population of organisms. Oh, they're there. There's a whole bunch of them. There's our population of our seagull organisms. The population that is at the beach at the state park. There they are. Loving life. Okay guys, so that concludes our hike and our lesson for today. I want to thank you so much for going on an awesome hike with me in our own backyard. So don't forget, we are so lucky that we live where we live. And the things we learn in biology, that's why it's your most important subject, right? Because this stuff is actually happening, this stuff actually exists. So my challenge for you is you are going to get to make your own nature documentary. So follow down in the document for the e-learning directions to see what I need from you so you guys can become the next amazing nature documentary host. All right? Email me with any questions and I am so excited to see what you guys come up with. Have an awesome day and that's it.